Okay, so yesterday we have seen WCF and the basic consumption of all, right, programming. So today we'll actually start with first integration. So today whatever we're going to see is the WCF, right? So whatever we have seen is console application, right? Now if you want to interact with DB, this is something which is pending now, right? So what we're going to do, we are going to integrate WCF with entity framework, right? And entity framework in turn will be communicating with database, right? So once this communication is happening, right? So we're going to integrate WCF and entity framework, and whatever we are getting requests from console. So console application here doesn't know what exactly we are using to interact with database, right? It is very clear here. So let's first start see how we can actually integrate this entity framework and WCF. So we already have created our entity framework data access layer, right? If you remember. So let me close all first, right? So where we have actually created a DAL. So in the DAL layer, we already have all the methods created for adding student, insert, everything, right? So let's see how to integrate it with our WCF service. So first, when we have WCF service, so integration is now. So this the entity framework, what we have done is we have actually created entity framework as a DLL, right? So which is called as a dynamic link library, which I can use it in my service. So here what we're gonna do, let's go back here in WCF service, right click on this and say add reference. Either you add a third party DLL or in this way, right, both will be same. So in this service, you have something called EF, which is entity framework data access layer. And we have to be careful here. Whatever DLL we are actually giving it as a reference, right? It should be either you can select it from a same project, or even if it is in the DLL is in some other area, you can browse it and select it. That's both you can do. Right? Now, anyways, let me select from solution, click on OK. So first step, we gave DLL reference. Here you can see entity framework data access layer. Right? So now, once the DLL reference is done, now it's time to, as the entity framework, right, we have two more steps left. So first step is to install WCF in my, entity framework in my, the current application. It doesn't matter even if it is a service or a normal web project or a console or whatever. If you're taking any reference of entity framework, consumed project, you have to install that. So let's set up the entity framework in WCF. Right click on it and say manage DB packages. So here let me type in entity framework here. Right. So we have entity framework. Click on install. So this will say already installed because we already installed the solution, and it will add entity framework latest library to the WCF service. Perfect. Click on close. Now you can see to this service we have entity framework libraries added. The first step is done. Now the second step is so whatever is a configuration file, connection string got created, which is cool DB context, right? So the same connection string should be available in the entity framework consumer project, which is WCF. So let's go to web.config here. So now you can see this is my web.config of a web service, WCF service, right? So here see whether you have any connection strings. So We don't have any connection string connection configurations available, right? So let's place it here outside the tag, which should come under configuration. So here, let's go. Perfect. So now my WCF service can use the NT framework library without any glitch. This is what we have for connections. So now let's close this connection. Yes, please. Hello. Yes, Vasan. Any question here? Yeah.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, Vasan. Please go ahead, Vasan. Yeah.
You already take the reference from the entity framework, right?
Yeah.
And then why again you are doing entity framework?
Okay. See, I'm taking this entity framework library as a reference, right? So when I take it as a reference in any project, what will happen, right? The classes and everything, like in this entity framework, the main class is DAL, right? And I have all other EDMX and everything. They start behaving as if they are part of this project, okay? So when they start behaving as a part of this project, then they look for libraries of entity framework base in the same project, right? So when it is looking for, then yes, we should have an entity framework, first step. Second thing, when this library components are looking it as the same project, then definitely it will try to read the same config, right? So we have to make sure the same configuration contains the same. That's a catch here.
If you give the name, if you give the different context, then it will be a problem, right?
Yeah, this will be a problem, because why we have to maintain the same key here? Key is important, right? You may change the DB configuration and everything you can change. There is no issue at all, right? So whatever DB configuration you are going to change, that will route to that DB, but your key should be same. You're right, Vasan. Key should always be same, because why? Because in my context class here you can see, here you can see we are passing that key to my DB context. If you don't allow configuration to have this key, right, then the complete process will go down, because connectivity itself will not happen, because it will not able to find some other keys connections to kind of.
Okay.
Clear, Vasan? Perfect. Okay. Okay. Now we gave the configuration file with the connection string. So now this is the completion of your integration of entity framework to WCF. Perfect. Which you have already seen before, and now again we are actually looking at. Good. So now let's do one thing. Let's go one step ahead and see how to retrieve something. Right. So let's say I want student details, right? Which means, or I'll say I want all the students, for example, right? So console is requesting I want all the students. So now console is requesting WCF, right? So when WCF request comes to WCF should talk to entity framework to get the students. Anyways, it will try to get. Now WCF knows what is a student model object, right? But console application doesn't know, right? Definitely does not, because entity framework is integrated to WCF and not to console. So in this situation, what we have to do? We have to create an intermittent object. Again, call, let's say for example, some other class I'll create, like maybe student WCF for example, which is same as this class, all the space and everything, and this is going to be our data contract. Now this will be our data contract for that specific model to map. So console application, we will be sending this class object and not the student object. This is very important communication we're going to do. Let me show you first. Now, Let me close all.
Srinath, can you say again that concept?
Yeah, sure. So I'll do one thing. I'll show it. Okay, then you'll understand. Anyways, I'll again come back to here. Okay. There's a theory I said. Once I show it in theory then, right, you'll understand. Now,
Okay.
in my interface, so my requirement here is to get students, right? And I have to get the details from my database and I have to reach it to console. That's my requirement. Fine, Muscle? So we'll see how we can actually do that. Complete communication. Now, so here, let me, oh sorry, it's not iService, it's iSchool and school service. Perfect. So let's go back here. First step is I want to create something called get all students, for example. Now this is my operation counter. Right? So for this, let's say, for example, anyways, I know that this WCF is now using Entity Framework, right? But can I say student here? This is the part where we have to understand, right? Now, can I say this method or operation will return student? No, we can't. Why? Because the student is not the WCF service class, but it is an entity framework model. And this entity framework model, when you go to definition, is not a data contract. Any object type you are going to communicate should be of type data contract, right? So if it is not data contract, then this will not, WCF will not allow you to communicate. That's the reason. What we are going to do, we are going to create the same class, right? Kind of with the same properties. For example, we are not going to take all the properties, right? The important properties of this specific table we are going to take. For example, now here we have taken, right? Let's take it as a normal class. It's a normal class, right? Public class student, but I'm going to replace it as something called maybe public class student WCF or anything, or one or two. This is just to make sure that I'm creating this as a data contract, right? And what I'll do, I'll make everything as a data member, because unless I make each and every member of the class as a data member, right? Again, I can't communicate each and every field. Now this is a catch. That is what I was talking about in the WCF, right? Whatever you want to actually map, the return type cannot be student directly, which is in Entity Framework, but you have to take a separate class. And the separate class, you can see, contains, right, same set of properties right now. Now why I'm creating this, now I'll show you. Now I can use this as a return type, right, which is my student WCF here. Now this is valid, but still I'm not talking to Entity Framework, right? So now let's see how to map it from Entity Framework. So here I'm going to create the implementation method, public open and close bracket, right? Now I have to get all the students, right? So first step is I'll create student details, student list, right? This is what I have to return, right? Which is my student WCF. Now, but student WCF is not the one which is filled. So here what I'm going to do, I'm going to talk to DAL. So which is, I'm going to take again something called list of student, which is I'll use my Entity Framework data access layer here. So in my data access layer, what I'm getting, I have my student list of student. So let me call it as EF student is equal to, now I'm going to create a DAL object, right? In DAL object we have created something called get students, right? So in DAL object, which is from our Entity Framework, right, which is in Entity Framework here, right? Now we are going to get list of students here, which is this list we are going to get. So here we are going to get the list. But what is the class we have in WCF? It's a student WCF, right? So we have to prepare from this list. We have to prepare this list, right? So this is going to be source, and this is going to be destination. So now let's see how to do it. So let's create a for each loop for entity framework students, because this is the one which contains data, right? And this will be a student. Now from here, what we have to do, we have to map our student WCF. So SWCF, let's say, is equal to new student WCF, and I'll map each and every student SWCF dot, let's say, student ID is equal to item dot student ID. Similarly, I have SWCF dot name is equal to item dot name. Right. So whatever fields you want, you can map now. Dot age is equal to item dot age. SWCF dot what do you have, phone is equal to item dot phone. So now each and every field we are mapping to WCF, and then I'll add it to student list, which is student list dot add of my SWCF. This is how we map. So now here see the shake hand is happening here. What I'm doing, I have my list of my student WCF object, and I'm retrieving all the actual student details here. Whatever actual student details I'm getting, I'm mapping it to this list. That's it. And once I'm getting this list, I'm returning it, because end of the day, WCF is returning its own data contract type of a class object and not separate. That is a secret here. So guys, did you understand this what we just discussed? Any questions till now?
Yes, sir. No questions.
Perfect. Very good, very good. So now you understand, right? Because end of the day, right, the out of the world of this WCF only knows what is student WCF. That's it. They know only this class, and they are not aware, and they should never be aware of these things. What exactly we are using others. Okay, that's a change. Perfect. So now as we have done the shake hand here, which is getting all the students and perfect. Now let me rebuild this WCF service. Right, perfect, rebuild successful. So let me upgrade this service reference. Sorry. So in the service reference, if you see, we still don't have this class called student WCF. You can see here, and also we don't have this method called get all students, right? So let's right click and say update service. So now perfect. You can see student WCF class got added and get all students also got it. Perfect. Right? So now let's go to the program, consumer program, and then now let's start consuming the now list of service reference dot you have see. Now you have only student WCF, because we understand only WCF terminology now, right? We don't know whether the service is using Entity Framework or Radio.NET or NHab.NET, or we don't know. It can be using anything, right? Is equal to my service SRVC dot get all students. So this will give me the array, and I will convert it to something called list. That's it. This is what it is going to be. And then I'm going to create a for each loop for this students here, and I'll create unprinted console.write line of item.student ID. Plus item name plus your item phone. Perfect. Right? So which is looping on and we are printing it. So this is a complete end-to-end integration. Now it is over. Now request is coming from console. Request went to WCF, which is our main intermediate app we have, and then integration. Now WCF is talking to entity framework, and entity framework is in turn talking to DB and getting back the request and showing the results. So complete end-to-end integration. So now let's run this program and see what happens. So it will start running the program. Now you can see. Now this is what we have for other old output. Now you can see this is a end output of the program. So now we are able to retrieve all the details right from database to my UI through a web service, through an entity framework, which is in display anymore. So tomorrow, let's say for example, if you have created some other thing, right? For now we have created console. So let's say as part of this, let's say assignment, you're going to use some other web application, it's MVC. Doesn't matter. You're going to use the same setup, right? And in MVC, what you have to do, you just have to map the student WCF object to screens. That's it. Everything else will be taken care by your service. This is how we normally do the stuff. Now again, anyways, I mean, this is something which is end-to-end. We'll do one more transaction for us to be more comfortable. So as of now, what we did, we are retrieving all students, right? Now, for example, you want to give some input from console, for example, like some student ID, and then you want to retrieve only that student ID's details, for example. Let's see how to do that. Now, anyways, if you have all right, you can directly filter it out here itself, right? With the specific student ID, right? But yes, if you want, you can also provide an input to get that. So rather, if you don't want to give that, so let's see the add transaction. What do we need to do? See the small one. Let's see the bigger one. So let's see how to add student. So if you understand this add student, now you'll be able to do anything, right? Which means from console, I'm going to pass the object of student, and I want to make sure it is adding it. After adding, I want to get all the details and show back to console. Simple. That's one transaction I want to do. Right? So let's see how to do it. Perfect. Now let's see, get all students I have. Now let me create one more operation contract called, let's say, I'm not gonna, maybe I'll use just boolean, right? Add student, for example. Now again, for adding student, console, WCF service should accept, will accept the data contract type of details, right? So it will send this type of details. That says to WCF, right? This is what is my operation, right? So now this is the last one we are checking about WCF. Now, if you are able to understand this part, then that's it. This is the complete communication of WCF we normally do. So let me create a service method for this. Public. Right? So now, when we have this service method, first step what to do? First step is to map this to student object first, right? Which is my student, not student WCF, my entity framework student. S is equal to new, right? So while adding a student, what is important? We don't need any student ID or anything, right? What is important is just name is important. Let's say name is equal to stu WCF. dot name. Again, you need age, for example, which is stwcf dot age, and then we need a phone. That's it, right? Because anyways, we know that when you add it, right, our ID will be generated automatically, right? That's how it is, right? So now let's see how to add it. Now adding now is just simple because you have a student object. So now let's create a DAL object here. Dot add or insert. Okay, insert student of us. That's it. Once done, let's say return true. Right. So this will add my student. Now it adds my student, right? Whatever I'm pushing from my console. That's what it is. So now here, let's create a complete transaction. I'll say add student. So we are also going to retrieve before and after also. So add student, what I'm going to do, I'll create a service reference dot student WCF object. Let's say student is equal to name. So here I'm going to use student dot name. So I have something called one second, is there an issue? 1 second. Okay. Oh, sorry, I'm using the same variable, no issues. Let's say student add, I'll use it as a student add. Right? So student add dot, I'll say name is equal to, so I'll say Visu, right? And student add dot, let's say age is equal to, let's say I'm going to be 21, and say student add dot, let's say phone is equal to something, some. Right? So once it is done, then what I'm going to do, let's say boolean result added, for example, is equal to my service. Oh, okay. So now here is the problem. So we have actually added this method, right? And after adding this method, let's say I'm rebuilding. So after rebuilding, we have to update the service, right? Otherwise, we will not get it. Perfect, no issues. So let's go to WCF consumer. So let's open the service reference, which we don't have, which doesn't have, right, this method, it doesn't have this method. Let's go back here, which is here. Right click on this and say update service reference. So update service reference and it will add so now you can see add student. So add student got added now. So let's come back here and say service dot add student of my student. Perfect. So now this will communicate this student WCF to okay, it is integer, no issues. Right? So this will communicate to my WCF service, and this WCF service is mapping it to student of relative framework, and we are calling it DAL, one of the method. That's it. This will insert. Now, right after inserting, what we'll do, we'll retrieve the information again. Right? While retrieving, let's say we are retrieving again the information. So let me just put the same piece of code here, and let's say I'll say student all. So which means here once we add it, right, as soon as we add, we are retrieving it. So we are going to see this one here. That's it, nothing else. Fine. So let's rebuild and run it. Now communication is simple, guys. If you have understood the data contract concept, right, that's it. Now you can actually do anything you want. Right. So now let's go back and run this program. So now here, perfect. You can see here add student got added, and you can see you're able to see this. The student ID is 12, Visu, and then age and result you created And this way you will get all the errata and everything mapping in reference. So this is the end-to-end integration of our SOA console to service to middle layer to database. This is the concept of complete SOA model we have. That's your WCF, where we have seen each and every term of your service class, host environment, endpoints of ABC, address binding and contract, and then all the available contracts we have in WCF. So this ends our complete course, guys, with WCF, right, end to end. So any questions till now in WCF, whatever we have learned? Perfect. So now it's time to actually conclude on assignments. So I'm gonna actually communicate this